Our first storyteller is originally from the East Coast. Michelle is from a showbiz family. She decided to become a psychotherapist in order to deal with her crazy upbringing. Currently, she has a private practice in Beverly Hills and treats individuals, couples, and families. She's an addictions specialist who sees a lot of people in the entertainment industry. Oh. I wonder why. She also provides therapy to comedians at the Laugh Factory. She's excited to be at Tell It for the first time, and we're very excited to have her here. So, please welcome Michelle Weber.
Time waits for no man or woman. There's less of it than you think. A year ago, I had 5 heart surgeries. I know, you wouldn't know it by looking at me, but I did. Time had a different importance to me then, and I found myself looking back on some parts of my life. Don't worry, this isn't a heart surgery survivor story. Relax. It's about AIDS in the late 80s. It's way funnier. One of the events in my life that I noted when I was feeling gratitude for every minute that I had lived is as follows. In August of 1987, I was living in Berkeley, California. Now, I know it's hard to tell by looking at me that I would have ever lived in Berkeley. But I did. I had just left a big job directing mental health programs for children and adolescents. I left because my boss was acting very badly, like asking women if they had gotten laid the night before and how big their boyfriend's dicks were. This was before Anita Hill, so I decided to hightail it the hell out of there. My daughter would be graduating high school that following June and going on to college. I needed to move back east for medical reasons. That, while fascinating, as all people talking about their ailments are, will be omitted for the purposes of this story. I was staying in Berkeley until my kid graduated, and I had time on my hands. It's no good for me to have time on my hands because I get bored and antsy. I had left a 60-hour-a-week job, and here I was with very little to do. Not good for my head or my soul. I saw that the AIDS Project of the East Bay in Oakland was looking for people to give a day or two a week, and I called and I offered my time. It seemed more up my alley than plant a tree or build a playground, and far less about digging or welding or getting dirty or sunburned. Talk I can do. Dig, not so much. I'm a psychotherapist and an addiction specialist. And I had run a center on death and dying at Yale. And I could be available to help people cope with grief and loss. Yale. I wasn't sure that you heard that the first time, so I felt it necessary to repeat the Yale part. Like you wouldn't repeat it, right? Come on. Okay, so in 1987, we had very little idea about this virus and how it impacted people who were diagnosed with the disease. I was expected to go through an intensive 3-day training before I began working with any of the clients. The training began with a panel composed of 3 guys who were diagnosed with HIV. Now remember, this was 1987. Each told their story to a group of about 100 of us. We were all volunteers. The stories were difficult to hear, and you could feel the sadness permeate the room. There was an enormous amount of empathy and sympathy and an outpouring of support and kindness. Then Richard spoke. Now Richard, one of the guys on the panel, was very seriously angry. He proclaimed that he was not gay, as many of the guys in the program were. He was better than that. And he insisted proudly that he had contracted the disease by sleeping with prostitutes. The more he spoke, the angrier he became. He felt sure that once he made it clear that he did not wave a rainbow flag or go-go dance on a bar in a jockstrap, that people would realize that he didn't deserve this disease like the homos did. Yeah, Richard, we got it. The training ended, and several days later, I received a call from Diane, the clinical director, with the name of my first client. I was psyched. It was Richard. Well, like a professional and a true compassionate woman, I of course said, no, not gonna do it, no way, no. I said he was rude, he was angry, he was a sexist pig. She didn't argue, but she went on to say, please, Michelle, he really needs a strong woman. Look, I'm not immune to flattery. If you call me strong, I'm gonna stop and think about it. So I took a breath, I paused, and I said, no. No, not gonna happen, no way. But here was the catch. I had volunteered my time, my services, but I was refusing to see the first client that had been referred to me. Like a true compassionate woman, an angel, really. I know it's hard to see how kind I am by looking at me, but I am. So I stopped, I took a breath, I took a look at myself. Okay, I said, I would agree to see him only in order to determine if we could work together, nothing more. I wasn't going to commit to someone that I couldn't help, and every time he opened his mouth, I wanted to put duct tape across his lips. When I told Diane I would see him, little did I know that he refused to see me because he said I was a pushy broad. And he didn't like pushy people. Loudmouth Richard, who was claiming superiority over gays, proudly announcing his love for hookers, said I was pushy? What? Come on, Richard. The director then informed me that there had been some incidences of domestic violence as well. Oh, terrific. When can I start? And what the fuck am I getting myself into? Oh boy, so I called him. And we made arrangements to meet for lunch in a few days. When I walked into the restaurant, I saw that he was dressed in a suit and a tie. And when he saw me, he stood up and pulled out my chair for me. The gay-bashing John with the anger issues and the dislike for pushy people pulled out my chair for me? Take note of how much that matters, guys. I am truly a feminist with contradictions. He was calm and kind, and I was open and compassionate, and something lovely happened. We forgot our prejudice, and we were able to connect. I mean, really connect. We continued to meet a few times a week throughout the year. The few months that I had planned to volunteer had stretched into 10. We spoke every day. When he needed a laugh, he called me. When his estranged wife came to his house, he called me. And I told him to leave immediately, because if he didn't, when he called me from the police station, I wasn't going to bail him out. When he went in for his treatment, which in those days meant up to a week in the hospital, he called me. Every day, sometimes several times a day. You see, guys, in those days, AIDS was a death sentence. AZT was on a lottery, and guys all around me were disappearing in the wink of an eye. But Richard kept going. The stripper-loving Energizer bunny with a pocket full of ones. On one occasion, when Diane, the clinical director, was running a group that he was in, she called to tell me that everyone was complaining about their therapist except Richard, who said, you needed a therapist like Michelle, who calls you a dickhead when you act like one. I know it's hard to believe I could call anyone a dickhead. But I can. Diane recalled that Richard was smiling like a Cheshire cat and acting proud to have me for his therapist. When Christmas came, I received a card from him which said, to a pushy broad from Sexist Pig. We had shared our prejudices about each other earlier on in the relationship. He also said that he was determined to live through 1988 because of me and the work that we had done together. He was determined to have more time. And in the card, he told me how grateful he was to have me as a therapist. We worked together until June of 1988. At the end of June, the panel convened one last time. Each guy was asked what was the best thing that had happened to him this year. And Richard didn't actually offend a single person. It was a proud moment for me. He said that the best thing that happened to him was having a therapist like Michelle, who got me to look inside and deal with my feelings. Discovering Richard's feelings is one of my highest achievements. I wish they gave out diplomas for that. I would have an RHD. Richard has depth. And I would display that right next to my diploma from Yale. I mentioned Yale, right? Yale? He and I said goodbye a few weeks later. He left for Arizona. I left for the East Coast. He continued to call me every Sunday. As the days went on, he became weaker and weaker. He had become really ill. One Sunday morning, his voice was so weak that I could hardly hear him. He told me that he was really tired and he didn't want to hold on anymore. I told him that if he wanted to, he could let go. He thanked me and we said goodbye. That was the last time we spoke. His girlfriend called me a few days later to tell me that he had died. Oof, and that before he passed, he had asked her to make sure to call me and thank me for all that I had done for him. And you know what, guys? A week later, I changed my license plate to Pushy Broad in his honor. And I dedicated to Richard, a man who helped me open my eyes to acceptance and love, a man who reminded me that everybody has feelings, a man who put a spotlight on time and how precious it is and how short it is, how there is only this moment and it is as good a minute or as bad a minute, as hard or as compassionate, as loud, as pushy, or as quiet and still as you decide this minute is going to be. Time waits for no man or woman. Don't wait until you have a life-threatening disease or need heart surgery to appreciate what time you have. It doesn't matter how much you have, it's what you do with it. Be kind, be compassionate, be here now. I know, you wouldn't know by looking at me that I'm such a softie, but I am. Now my story has come to a close, and I'm going to sit the fuck down. I thank you, all of you, for listening.